In this video, we'll take a beginner level look at different types of batteries you can use with solar in 2023. In 2015, I did a video on this subject, and it hasn't aged very well. A lot has changed in that time, especially the spread of lithium batteries. So what options do you have now in 2023? This video will be broken up into 3 parts: the types of batteries to choose from, factors in making a decision, and my personal recommendations. Use the chapters to skip around if you don't want to watch the whole thing. But before we get started, this is not going to be a lithium versus lead acid video. We will discuss some pros and cons very briefly, but it's not meant to be an exhaustive comparison. I also won't cover every conceivable type of battery you could use. I'm going to cover different types of batteries that I have found compelling as solar battery options, and then give you some factors on how to make a good decision for your use case. Don't just take someone's recommendation though. Your unique needs will be different from someone else's. First, let's discuss some different chemistries and types of construction. The battery with the lowest initial cost is the flooded lead-acid battery. This type of battery has been around forever. It has some performance strengths, such as high surge current and cold charging. It can be purchased and recycled almost anywhere, and is very reliable. However, it does require regular maintenance, such as topping off the cells with distilled water, has the shortest lifespan, and has some performance weaknesses that you have to design around, such as voltage sagging as the battery discharges. Another type of lead-acid battery that's slightly more expensive are AGM and gel batteries, which are both sealed lead-acid batteries. These batteries don't require the same level of maintenance as flooded lead-acid and last slightly longer in terms of cycle life, but the performance is usually pretty much the same, or maybe very slightly better than flooded. They also won't spill acid all over if you accidentally tip them over. But all lead-acid batteries can start a fire if you accidentally create a short circuit with a bare wire or drop a metal tool on the terminals. Don't ask me how I know that. Lithium batteries are the most expensive up front. Most deep cycle lithium batteries that are marketed for solar will be lithium iron phosphate or LFP. But there are a couple other notable chemistries that you may run across, such as NMC and lithium ion. The term lithium ion is actually an umbrella term for many different chemistries, but a lot of companies will use that term to refer to lithium cobalt or LCO. I won't get too much into the differences other than to say that both LCO and NMC batteries do not last as long as LFP and can explode or catch fire in a thermal runaway event if not used properly. So I would recommend staying away from those for solar applications. LFP does not suffer from thermal runaway issues and lasts over twice as long as the others in terms of cycle life. In general though, lithium batteries have many performance advantages over lead-acid batteries, such as stable voltage during discharge. They can also protect themselves from short circuits and other dangerous conditions, are much lighter weight and smaller, and last much longer, sometimes 20 years or more depending on the application. But they cannot be charged in cold weather, usually cannot be connected in very large battery banks, cannot be easily recycled, sometimes can have a lower surge current rating, and have a much higher price tag. Now before we move on, I do want to at least mention car batteries. Car batteries, also called cranking or starting batteries, are built to provide very high current for short periods of time. They don't like to provide power for long periods of time, even if that power is not very high. Think about those times you left the dome light or headlights on in your car and came back the next morning and the battery was dead. I usually tell people if you have a free car battery laying around and want to use it, fine, but it won't perform well. And please don't ever buy a car battery for solar on purpose. For that same money, you could get a deep cycle battery that will work 10 times better. Now that we've reviewed the types of batteries available, let's look at the factors that you should consider before buying any batteries. A lot of people decide they like one battery and then try to justify it for their application, so try to keep an open mind here. The first factor or criteria should be performance. How much power do you demand and which battery type can meet those demands? If you have very high current needs for a short period of time, such as starting a compressor motor or an engine, then you might need to look at dual-purpose batteries that are built for both deep cycle and starting capabilities. Most lithium cranking batteries can function as a deep cycle battery even if they aren't labeled that way. You could also consider putting a lead-acid starting battery and a deep cycle battery in parallel to achieve the same thing. There are other performance considerations such as how far the voltage will drop at certain depths of discharge. If you need a steady voltage, then lead-acid probably isn't a good choice. The second factor is safety. If you need to install batteries inside your home, for example, don't use flooded lead-acid batteries because they emit gases when they charge, and the acid inside can be spilled or leak and cause damage to your flooring. Likewise, an NMC or LCO battery would be a bad choice due to the risks of explosion or fire. But if the batteries are going outside in a shed or outbuilding, then those could be a viable choice. Third is maintenance. If you aren't prepared to regularly maintain a flooded lead-acid battery bank, don't use one. Even though it's the cheapest option up front, it can become the most expensive option if it dies in one season because you didn't take care of it. But lithium isn't exempt from maintenance either in some scenarios. If you have a battery bank with multiple lithium batteries, you occasionally need to disconnect them from each other and charge them individually to allow the BMS to perform a top balance on the cells. Fourth is the size and weight. Lead-acid batteries are big and heavy, but if you've got plenty of space, that doesn't matter. Lithium batteries are much smaller and lighter, so if you have an RV or boat or other application where weight is harmful and you're very limited on space, lithium might be the best choice. You can even hang some lithium batteries on the wall to really save on space. Fifth is temperature. All batteries suffer in colder weather, and as I mentioned before, lithium batteries should never be charged in freezing temperatures. They can still be discharged, but not charged. So if your batteries will be exposed to those kind of temperatures regularly, then you need to steer clear of lithium, or at least make sure the batteries have cold charging protection built in, and you have a plan for those cold days when your batteries are empty and you can't recharge them. By the same token, extremely hot temperatures can promote thermal runaway in some lithium batteries, so keep an eye on that too. And finally, sixth is the lifetime you expect to get out of your batteries. Lead-acid batteries can last 6 or 8 years if you choose a premium brand and take very good care of them, especially if you don't discharge them to 0%. Lithium batteries can last 20 years or more, again depending on how deeply you discharge them. So if you know you're going to own that RV for the rest of your life, then lithium might make a wise investment. But 20 years is a long time, so if you're already daydreaming about trading in your boat for a better one in a few years, that should probably factor into your decision. Finally, let's talk quickly about some of my personal recommendations. If you're just starting out with DIY solar, I highly recommend getting a pair of 6-volt GC2 golf cart batteries. You can pick these up for around $90 to $100 on sale at Costco or Sam's Club, and they're absolute tanks. Most people starting out with solar will destroy their first set of batteries through trial and error and neglect as they learn how everything works. So losing out on $200 isn't going to usually break the bank. But if you do manage to take care of them, they'll last you several years of deep cycle use. On the bigger side of lead acid are various industrial battery sizes. These are usually meant for lift trucks or power washers or other heavy-duty equipment. L16 is one good example. If you have a cabin or outbuilding or another application where you have some space and weight isn't an issue, I highly recommend looking this direction. But if you can afford it, lithium is king for most applications now. If you have a boat or RV, there are numerous options that are direct drop-in replacements for Group 27, 29, and 31 battery sizes that the original manufacturer used. So they'll meet your space available and give you a huge boost in power and runtime. Or, if you're looking at lithium for an off-grid home, cabin, or outbuilding, there are now rack-mountable options that are perfect for stacking batteries in a neat installation that doesn't take up much space. And they're designed to be installed in large banks, so they have communication and monitoring capabilities that make managing the whole bank a lot easier. That wraps up this beginner video. If you're shopping for lithium batteries, I would love for you to take a look at the MillerTech lithium batteries on my web store at store.ldsreliance.com. Thanks for watching, and please leave a thumbs up and a comment if you found this video helpful so other people can find it too.